Hey everyone, welcome to the Strategic Growth Podcast. I have a special guest interview with Kitt Letcher, CEO and President of the Business Bureau. You know her. We've had her on the podcast before. She's a great guest.
Welcome to the Golden Group Strategic Growth Podcast, featuring expert insights, interviews with thought leaders, and business plan triage. Hosted by Kyle Golding, award-winning entrepreneur, CEO, and Chief Strategic Idealist for the Golden Group.
We're returning Kitt to the program today because we're going to have a little bit different conversation than we've had in the past. Some different things that you and I have talked about off camera and off microphone that we think is really relevant, especially kind of right now. It's the first of the year. 2023 is up and rolling, and a lot of people are thinking about how to plan for the year and lay out. And you're thinking about budgets and calendars and goals and all the things that come with how you look forward to the future. And typically that conversation is yearly. What's 2023 look like? Or what's the next 12, sometimes 18 or to 24 months? People do 5-year plans, etc. But there's also things that you have to do all the way down to the daily planning.
Absolutely.
So where's the in-between, and how do you think there are opportunities? Where are the opportunities to do both, to have big picture and to do those daily tactical items? And where's the combination? And so I really want to pick your brain on this. So right off the bat, how do you balance big picture and day-to-day execution for your team?
Yeah. So a couple of different ways that we've done this. And the way I like to do it, my preference is to figure out what is our kind of one big area of focus for the year for our team. And so we have done that probably since like 2015, which has been great because we've got a couple of different like experiments that we've done on how we do that well. Some years have worked better than others. And the one thing I will say about this is some years need to be like a growth year and some years need to be a stability year.
True.
How do we keep the ball rolling and moving forward, but maybe not at a breakneck pace? I'm not saying that right. You know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. And you are right in that you can't always keep that 2x, 3x, 5x pace. You'll burn everyone out.
Yeah.
But you also can't get to a certain level of success and go on cruise control and never accelerate again, right? You have to do both at certain times. You have to do both.
You've got to have some peaks and some valleys and figure out, okay, this is a good spot for us, and figure out what's a baseline even.
Right.
Because sometimes your baseline changes once you've had a good growth spurt and you've been able to maintain it, and now this is our new base. Okay, how do we next?
What's that reality
2x,
look like
3x
moving
that?
forward from there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we pick a focus for the year. So like for BBB, our year focus in 2023 is going to be retention. We're really digging into how do we best serve our businesses that are accredited with us, people who are looking to connect with other business owners, and really provide the best level of retention for our accredited businesses so they understand I'm getting the most out of the value for my BBB accreditation.
Right. And the most value for BBB is retaining the customers that they have now, right?
Absolutely. And that all stemmed from a conversation with our team. It's not me setting the tone, right? We asked the question, what would need to be true for our BBB to be seen as the premier connector and resource to business?
That's a great question.
Started the question with the team.
Great question.
And said, how would you answer this? And I said, I'm not answering it because I'm sitting in a different seat than you guys.
Yes.
You all work with businesses differently than I do. I want to see what your perspective is. So I started with the team, and we did a full day-long brainstorming. And so they came back with several ideas because really, if we're doing a good job connecting and being resource to business, then we're going to get higher retention.
Right.
So
the more value you provide, the easier it is to retain.
Yeah, because when people cancel with us, and they cancel their accreditation, that's the one thing they say, I didn't get any value from my accreditation.
And thank goodness you asked that question and record it and have that as part of your decision-making process. Why do people say yes, and why do people say no, and why do people quit?
Yeah.
So essential to understand that data.
Yeah, because they need to know what their dollars are going towards, and we need to know if we're doing a good job. Right. So looking at that, and through that lens, then we picked goals like for the year and what's going to be our focus. And typically what we've done is look at, okay, if we're doing all of these things at the end of the year in December, we want to be able to say we've hit all these different benchmarks and we can check these boxes. And we're going about it a little bit differently this year. And we're really focusing on our 12-week blocks and looking at the sprint. And so instead of just the full year, it's what can we get done in this 12-week that really moves the needle? Because it gives us so much more opportunity to experiment and see what's working and what's not.
Right.
We can't try
Make those
something for
adjustments.
a week
Yes.
and then see like huge changes, right?
A week is not long
It's not
enough,
enough.
and a
Yeah.
year is too long.
Yeah.
So how do you make shorter periods where you can make adjustments
Mm-hmm.
and utilize again the data that you collected through the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking at that 12 weeks and then breaking it down by week and then daily tasks. What are the things that move the needle? And I love the kind of the 1% rule. If I change or increase just by 1% on a daily basis,
Right.
there's small tangible nuggets that we can all do and achieve and not feel completely overwhelmed. So how do we do that on a daily basis? So then getting down to the finite and then moving out from that. Okay, then what does my week look like? Well, then if I do that, what does my month look like?
Right.
Well, then if I do that, now I've got this whole quarter of dynamic change, growth, things that absolutely make a difference. Then how do I take that quarter and then apply it to the next quarter and make some
With
different
adjustments.
changes?
Yes.
Because it's all an experiment.
Right.
We're all trying new things. And so maybe it's not even a big shift. Maybe it's, okay, that didn't work really well. It didn't make as much change as I thought it was going to.
Mm-hmm.
Let me try this.
Right.
So that's really where we are focusing for 2023.
But as the boss,
Mm-hmm.
you also at the same time have to be looking at you're looking at the calendar, you're
Absolutely.
looking at the budget,
Yeah.
you're looking at the numbers, you're looking at what the expectations of your board of directors is, you're looking at historical
Right.
performance, et cetera,
Events
right?
that we're going to host.
Right.
Yep.
What's your personal approach to managing all of that and then working back to your staff that are working on daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've already done it for 2023.
Atta girl. Yes.
Thank you.
Everyone, if you're not prepared fully for 2023 today, you are amazingly far behind, way far behind.
Because it takes time.
Yes.
It's not a quick, I sat down for 3 hours.
And your best work is done not under pressure. Not, I need this to tell the boss tomorrow, but I need to sit down and think and flow through and have a first draft, second draft, right? And work through the process, not get it done on a deadline.
Right. And so we have a lot of committees that meet for BBB. I've got a governance, a finance, a board, and an executive committee that meet on regular cadences. So I need to make sure that we are ready for those meetings. We have events that we host every year. We have 2 big ones annually, but then we have monthly events. And we have others that meet for happy hour. So how
Then
do
you
we
get the
get
seasonal
all of
stuff,
those
holidays
things?
and seasonal.
Times that our office is going to be closed.
Right.
So we have to be prepared going into it and coming out of it. What are the expectations on either side of it? That still demands that we have to meet. So we actually have calendared out our entire year for 2023. I have even included vacations that I know that I'm going to be on for that period of time, because if I'm not as available for my team, we need to know well in advance.
Yes.
Yeah. So all of those things matter as you're putting together those quarterly plans, because if you don't have them already lined out as you're creating your quarter, then it delays the process. It gets you off key. I mean, there's so many different things that can go wrong and derail everything that you've tried to achieve.
Right.
So having that annual kind of calendar, it's not a goal, if you will. It is truly a calendar of these are the things we know are going to happen that we need to plan around.
Which is the absolute perfect starting place for any conversation. A lot of times people ask me to plan a whole year, I don't even know where to start. This is absolutely where to start. There are things, most people know a lot more about their business than they think they do.
Right.
Until you start putting it down on paper. It's sort of challenging those ideas of I don't know where to start. Sure you do. There are things you're going to put on the calendar from January 1st. And that's a good starting place from there.
Absolutely.
And then things start to structure back from there. You go back to, and going back to those breakdowns, yearly, half year, quarters, and then things become a little bit more manageable when you're talking about weeks or months, as opposed to I have to get this done in a whole year can be really daunting, or I have to get this done by the end of the day today can also be stressful as well, in 2 very different ways, right?
And we miss big things. And, one of the things I'll say, the calendar and the goal setting are separate in that the calendar are things that we know have to happen. And those are what I would consider daily tasks that should be on everybody's calendar.
Right.
Versus goal setting is more strategic. It is really, if we want to achieve this, what's going to happen? That doesn't mean that I get to delay ordering supplies or materials or when we stuff envelopes. That's all part of our daily
The difference
regimen.
between strategy and tactics, right? Is strategies are based on goals and objectives. big picture in the direction you're trying to move the organization,
Right.
where tactics are your daily, weekly, and even sometimes monthly execution that lets you know if you're on track or not, right?
Yeah.
So giving the direction and then following the direction, the two aspects of that conversation.
Yeah. So those two things are really married together,
Right.
and we have to be cognizant of they're not the same. They have two kind of paths that they're following, and one's a little more fuzzy than the other, right? The thing we have to get done daily, I've got to order supplies on Monday so that I have them for next Monday. That has to happen every week. That's not part of my strategy.
No, but it is part of how you're going to achieve your strategy overall. It's, again,
Right.
you can't move the direction that you set for yourself if you can't take care of the details.
Yeah. One of the ways in which we actually started with this 12-week process is with performance evaluations. And so we started doing this several years ago, where we sit down with each team member and we say, this is your baseline, all the job duties that you are responsible for. This is day to day, everything that we would expect from you that's added in your job description.
Right.
Now, in addition to that, we have quarterly bonuses that you can achieve based on additional things that you do. And so those are the things that really help us achieve our goals. So those are the above and beyond.
Right.
So maybe it's, doing some extra data cleanup or calling customers more so in a different category than we have in years past, or it could really be any number of things based on the different job performances that everybody's completing. Like for our finance office, maybe it was changing the chart of accounts to meet like a new kind of requirement that we're up for. While it's part of her job, it's that particular project wasn't. So it's above and beyond.
Right.
So she's bonused off of doing that well. And it set the cadence for that 12 weeks. Those different bullet points matter and are very different from I'm doing my job every day.
Right.
I'm doing my job every day plus.
Yes.
And so it's not an opportunity to, I would say, add on like duties and like overload somebody. It is a conversation of what do you think you can actually achieve, what's attainable, and what's a little bit of a stretch so that extra money is awarded for extra service.
Because you're recognizing it is extra, not just because I'm the boss, I said so, just do it. But yeah, allowing your staff member to almost lean into the extra responsibility and reward them for it.
Right, absolutely. Right. And they set 3 to 5 goals each quarter that they want to achieve. And we've had people before that said, you know what, this is not a good season in my life to do this.
Fair enough.
I am just going to meet expectations. Absolutely. That is perfectly fine.
Sure.
While yes, you're leaving some money on the table, for them, that was more important than not fulfilling an expectation or goal that they had set. So that's part of where
it's much better to know that they can't accomplish it than for them to tell you they'll try and then fail at it.
And
it's
then
both bad for them and bad for you as well. Right?
Yes. Yeah. So,
and if it's something that's essential for the organization, you have to find someone else to make sure it happens.
Yeah.
Right?
And if it needs to be as part of a regular job duty, then you need to fit that into somebody's role truly and compensate them for that.
Yes.
That does not just get doubled down.
More responsibility means more pay.
It does.
You can't just add on to people and keep them at a certain level or even give them those, those little incremental cost of living wages and expect them to continue to have a great attitude about their performance because they see it, they understand what's happening. So as an individual, as Kitt, in your head, you're talking to yourself, you're saying, Kitt, I've constantly have to know what's going on the regular, on the tactical side so that I can make sure we're on the right track and make sure my team is getting the support they need and they're achieving those smaller goals to lead to the bigger goals. But you're also thinking about your quarterlies, your yearlies. You're also in that 5-year, you might even be in a 10-year mode at some time.
Right.
How do you personally, like to stop and specifically I'm working on the 5-year plan today because I carved off 2 hours, or does it constantly flow and is it come and go or as needed or when it comes up? What's your approach personally to those ideas?
I'm a podcast junkie.
Hey, here we go. She listens to this podcast, y'all.
And so I think what happens more often than not is while I'm listening to podcasts or I'm reading different books, it'll spark an idea. And it's like, oh, I really need to include that in my 12-week, my, year goals. And so I'm always carrying a notebook with me.
Right. Me too.
And I have one that's called the Full Focus Planner. So it's a 12-week planner, which I love. So it keeps me on track. But then I have another one that's just a general notebook where I just jot down ideas. And it's, okay, if I need to remember this, I know this is the page I can get back to. So when I am taking my time to sit down and think, okay, I'm going to work on our annual goals, or I'm going to work on our 12-week goals, or even our 5-year plan, I've written it down somewhere because ideas spark all the time. So we need a way in which to capture that.
I have a notebook in my shower.
That's right.
I do.
I
do. I have waterproof paper in my shower because I am constantly all day, every day, because that's how my brain fires off. I'm always thinking of ideas, and some of them are this needs to happen today, and some of them are here's something I want to talk to a client for the next year kind of conversation. So it's always interesting to see how
other people
approach these same concepts.
Well, and I have found the more I write down and the better I am about doing that consistently, the better sleep I get.
Yes.
Because those are the things that wake me up at 3.
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting thinking, oh my gosh, I really want to do this. And then I'm thinking about presentations that I give, and I get all this really great verbiage that comes out, and I don't write it down. Right. So it's like in there, just churning around in my brain. But the more I get it down on paper and get it out, the better I am at then creating a plan and sending it out to other people to say, is this even reasonable?
Right.
Have you thought about this? Let's talk about it, and brainstorming that on a much broader spectrum.
So what's your process? You said you take notes. You said you had a journal as a 12-week kind of. Do you have a process of like a draft and a version B and this and do you physically organize them, or do you use an electronic tool? How's your approach to that?
Yeah. So let's see, I'm trying to think about the best way to parse that down. I would say when I'm ready to start working on something, I pull my journal and start looking at the notes that I've made, and I get it into a framework. The 12-week guide that we'll do, we actually use a framework called EOS. And we put everything in there. So our rocks that we're planning on meeting for that quarter, by person, what those look like. And then I'll take like my 3 or 4 rocks that I'm responsible for, and I'll put them back into my full focus planner. And so that's it's a different from my regular journal, but it's something that I can tangibly look at and sit and write with. And I have found that the more specific I can get on what are the big 3 things that I have to do on a daily basis, the better I can calendar that out. It keeps me on track, so I know I'm doing the things I need to do. In that, I will also use my annual calendar to figure out, okay, this is coming up, and I need to be ready to talk about these things with the board or the governance committee or whatever that looks like. So I need to block time to do that planning. And I have to be really intentional about blocking out brainstorming planning for myself. Because I could just, do all sorts of other things. And so if I don't force myself to sit down and really think about it, I'll tell you, Friday afternoons is one of the best times that I do that. So in the morning on Fridays, you'll find me out at the barn. I go horseback riding.
Another great way to clear your mind and let ideas just flow.
And so I am refreshed. I'm happy. My heart's happy because I've done something that I love doing.
Right.
And then I have lunch, and then I get showered and cleaned up. And then I spend really Friday afternoons wrapping up my week, looking at what's coming up, not just for the next week, but then the next month, the next quarter. Am I on track? And are we hitting the different kind of milestones that we need to?
Right.
And what are the things that happened this week that ideas sparked? How do I need to incorporate that for next week? What does that look like? So always kind of doing that back and forth look at weeks and times and ideas.
Because I have so many ideas on the regular basis, I write so many notes, and my handwriting is bad too. Sometimes I can't read my own handwriting. I have to develop a process of how I get them from the random Post-it notes from the shower into a little bit of organized piles, little physical piles. And then I write things out. I use Evernote. And once I get into Evernote, then I can add tags and things like that. And then it becomes a draft, second draft, third draft, things like that. But everyone has their own process.
They do.
As long as you recognize, because I didn't have to always have a good process. I had ideas, but developing a process and something that could be workable made it so much more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also goes back to experimenting.
Yes.
Because I've tried Evernote and I don't love it. I've tried OneNote where it syncs between different things. And for me, having the tangible writing of it and flipping pages, that tactile kind of method really matters to my brain, and it feels more complete, and I like that method. And so, yes, I've tried different electronic versions, and that's where the podcasts really come in handy, because people will say like, oh, I use this method. And then I think, well, maybe I could try that. And so I've pulled together all these different pieces over years to make my current process work really well. So like EOS, we've been doing that at BBB for the last 2 years. It's worked really great, and it's comprehensive for our whole team. Full Focus Planner is something that I started this year that I found to be really, really effective. Well, then it led into the 12-week year. I mean, so it's one thing after another. They really spark different ideas. And when I talk about EOS, we have KPIs that we look at for the entire organization.
Certainly.
And the question that we asked in order to find our KPIs that work for us is, if we were stuck on a desert island, what are the 15 things we need to know about BBB on a weekly basis in order to know that it's working, that we're fulfilling our obligations, that we're meeting expectations, that our customers are happy, all the things are running the right way. And when people talk about micromanaging, like if I don't see people working, then I don't know that they're working.
Right.
This is a good tool to use. If you were stuck on a desert island and you couldn't see people working because you were physically removed from them, what would you need to see in order to know work is getting done?
Right.
Ask that question and see what bubbles up. And it'll help you refine things that are actually really important to you and things that are just busy work that you're doing because you think they're necessary, when in fact they're really not.
Invaluable to the strategic planning process, but also could has the potential to be value into a succession process too.
Yep.
If no one's guaranteed to wake up every morning, right? There are key players, or even the head person of any organization could be incapacitated and not be available if there's documentation.
I win the lottery, I might make different
whatever
choices.
It is. Or you are on a desert, you bought a desert island because you won the lottery.
Now
so
we're talking.
It allows your organization to move forward in any way. If there's more organization, more structure, more documentation, more processes in place, more systemization, all of those things allow organization to survive, whether individuals can make it into work every day or not, right? Or operate well in a remote capacity, or just simply the opposite of micromanaging.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to end on this question. It's a big picture question. Can you recount a time and your thought process and how you kind of visualize this and realize this in the back of your head? Was there a time where you laid out something that was a long-term goal, a year, 18 months, 24, maybe even 5 years, for BBB or for yourself, and you started working on it, and you got down to the tactical level and you worked through it, and then, because it takes time, you don't set a 5-year goal and you get it in 5 months, right?
Right.
And at some point you thought to yourself, I see it coming. The train is coming down the track. That thing that 2 years ago I laid out as an ultimate goal, I see the dominoes aligning, and here it comes, and then it arrives. Recount that for me, and how you recognize it and how you felt about it.
So I love that you asked me this question, because in 2019, I thought I need to think a little bigger, because my kids at that time were just on the cusp of becoming teenagers. Okay,
and that's important.
We have a finite amount of time with them in the house still, and there are significant things I want to do with them. And so I started from the perspective of,
when Kitt says bigger, she means bigger physically. Do you see on the video?
I'm a really tactile person.
We have the whole table laid out here with her map.
Yeah, it is. It's a roadmap for the next 5 years. And it's ironic that it happened going into 2020, but it was really helpful. So I started with my age and the age of my family members. Yes. So my husband, Stuart, my daughter, Isabel, and then my son, Colin. In 5 years, how old are they going to be? Okay. And what do I want to have accomplished by the time they get to those ages?
Right.
So, because I think family planning and business planning and career planning, it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, planning is planning.
One does not,
it makes sense.
We have to have both together. So for our family, vacations, trips, significant places that we're going are really important to us. And being able to fit that into where I am with work matters. Okay. So I planned out where we were going on our trips for 2020. Those obviously all got canceled.
2020 was a different year, remember.
It was a different year, but it really set the tone for other things that I had planned for the year, because I was at this weird lull in my kind of professional life. And we had achieved a lot of goals that I wanted to achieve at BBB. I wasn't looking for another job, but I needed something that was engaging, that really fulfilled me personally.
You kind of got stuck in a little bit of cruise control.
I did.
Right? Yeah.
So I had to think about like what's
good
the
for you
next
for challenging yourself.
thing.
Good.
Yeah. And what things really make me happy and what things am I really good at?
Right.
So I looked at like, I love giving presentations. I love talking to people about corporate culture and how do you move your business forward.
That's why we have you on the podcast all the time.
Myself.
Yes.
And so I mapped out like different questions for myself. Like, what are my core values? And I think that's important because you need to make sure the activities that you're doing through the filter of your core values match.
Not just stuff.
Right. And so you know what to say yes and what to say no to. And so then from there, it was, okay, so if I could, in the next 5 years, when I get to the end of it, what do I want to have seen accomplished over that time frame? And that's where I came up with those performance goals and really got into the nitty gritty of what would make me happy, like truly fulfilled and feel like I'm doing my purpose, which for me is building a better community and really doing that through my values. So then it got to goals by quarter for 2020. And it went from great big down to small, true tactics. And not only filling in, like I put in there things that I wanted to have accomplished, but realizing that some of those are not my strength. And so while they need to get done, I'm going to need some help to accomplish it. And so you can see here, I've created like admin, like there's all these check boxes, but there's only some of the boxes with my initials next to it. So then I had to take it back to my leadership team and say, here's all the things I think we need to accomplish in administration for our business. But these are the things I'm really good at that I think I can do well. Are there any things on here that aren't part of my role that you guys could do with me? And so filling that in together, because it's a group process. We operate as a team.
Absolutely.
And so then figuring out what that looks like. So then that's what I put into my full focus planner and break down day by day, what are the big 3 things that I need to get done today in order to achieve this specific goal?
This is the visualization of a type A personality. That's exactly what this is. But I'm proud of you for taking such a thoughtful process to achieving anything.
Yeah.
Because nothing gets achieved just by waving
your right. Yeah.
And getting all the way down from a 5-year to a quarterly, which is close as you can get in a 5-year plan is quarters. But you've got there down to your check boxes and assignments and your action plan. Yeah. That's very impressive.
And I'll say this took weeks. It wasn't one and done.
Yeah,
right?
I would think so.
And so I'd roll
lots
it out
of going back
here at the
again
office.
and again and again. Right?
Yeah,
Just going
and
back
I'd bring in other people to look at it with me and say, this is my goal. What do you think?
Right.
And they'd say, I don't know if you can do that, but what if you did this? And so we tweak it from there. And so that's why it's different color codes depending upon who was telling me what. And I got my family buy-in. I got my team buy-in. You know, my mom's bought in on it.
Right.
And so it was a lot of different brains around this because we don't operate in a vacuum.
True.
And we really need to incorporate the other people in our lives whenever we're talking about goals and strategy and how do we move ourselves forward because it affects everybody that we do things with.
Right. This is the value of process. This is the value of planning. This is the value of a type A personality for sure too. And almost really work-life balance, like making sure that the things you're doing at work support you as a person, as a human being for the things you want to do with your family and outside of work and cohesively. And again, not stuff for stuff. I'm going to just go, not a vacation just to go somewhere, but to go on a vacation that's meaningful to you or your family member, or to learn something or to embrace something that the kids, when they get too old, it won't be cool anymore and things of that nature. So this is an amazing personal take on all the stuff we've been talking about on the podcast thus far about how to approach things as a business. So the core idea of how to approach a problem or a goal or an idea, or like, I wish I could do this, but I don't know how. That's a big question.
It is.
How do you get there?
Hard.
Here's the process of how you get
start
there.
breaking it down.
There you go. Don't be afraid of that. And experiment.
Yes.
Versions of it. It'll change. Take input from others. Collaboration. There's so many good values in all that process. You can't do anything alone.
Right. Absolutely. It takes everybody involved.
There it is. A beautiful example of how things are done.
Thank you.
I wish you guys could see the detail here. It is amazing. And trust me on that for sure. But I'm going to have to take all this in and check this all out. So I'm going to tell you guys that we always appreciate Kitt Letcher being on the podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Golden Group Strategic Growth Podcast. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode. follow the Golden Group on social media. For more information, past episodes, or to contact us, please visit thegoldengroup.com.